Hello, my Pontiac High School students, and welcome to our lesson today on the basic concepts of democracy. But before we get into this, let's look at some foundational ideas here. It's important for us to know that democracy is not inevitable. This is not how societies prefer and tend to form together. And it's not perfect. Democracy has flaws. In fact, I love this quote by Winston Churchill right down here. Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all of those other forms that have been tried from time to time. This is acknowledging the failings of democracy, the fact that it's clumsy, it's messy, it doesn't always work efficiently. But at least it's better than those other ones. Democracy requires acceptance of 5 basic concepts, and now we are getting into our basic concepts of democracy, so let's look at them. Number one, this one. Each individual person has worth. Within a democracy, we have to accept this and acknowledge that individual interests must be considered before government action is taken. This is the idea that within a society, we may have the idea that some individuals are more important to the society. But in a democracy, we must acknowledge the worth of every individual. Democracies, true democracies, do not have slavery. They do not have tiered citizenship. These are not democracies. Everybody has worth. Now, moving on to the equality of all persons. Here we have the idea that, quote, all men are created equal, right? It's in our founding documents, and we had that straightforward. This doesn't mean that we are all born with the same abilities or the same advantages. Certainly, there are those who are born into wealthy families and affluent neighborhoods who go to the best schools, and they got a leg up on life. And we might not think that that's a perfect system. Certainly it is not a perfect system, but it exists. And those people are more likely to have certain advantages in life and opportunities in life than others. But within our society, within America, we have equality of opportunity. That is, everybody has a chance to do the same sorts of things. It's harder for some, but everybody has the opportunity. You can grow up in the ghetto and go to Harvard and become a U.S. congressman. This happens. It happens actually fairly frequently. Not as frequently as it should by ratio of the population, but it does. And all are equal under the law. That is, if a multi-billionaire is speeding on the highway, he's not going to be treated any different than anyone else. And we see this all the time with congressmen and other members of elected government. If they get caught drunk driving, yeah, they get fined for drunk driving, and it makes the news, and we all hear about it. All right. Majority rule versus minority rights. This is a really important one for us to understand in democracy, and it can be a little complex, so I'll take some time here to explain it. But in America, the majority direct the policies of the government, right? Our government does what the majority wants them to do, and the majority elects our representatives. You become a representative by having more votes than others. This is how democracy functions. This is how a republic functions. However, within a democracy, the minority has to be protected from what's called the tyranny of the majority. We cannot have a system where a majority, where 51% of Americans decides that some slice of the population is no longer worthy of civil rights or civil protections or of equality. Once we go into that, once we start down that line, we run into some serious societal problems because which group will be next? We saw this in Nazi Germany, where first they go after the communists and then they go after the Jews, and who are they going to go after next? They picked off these small groups one at a time. We cannot go down that line. We have to protect the rights of all minorities, and therefore those protections are built into our Constitution. Minority rights is extremely important. The necessity of compromise is true in all democracies. We're not going to always agree. In fact, we shouldn't always agree. We frequently have to share our opposing ideas and we have to reach a compromise. You're not going to get all of what you want. I'm not going to get all of what I want. But for us to move forward as a nation, we have to seek a balance. We have to seek a middle ground. When compromise breaks down, as it kind of has in Congress in recent years, our nation struggles to move forward on important issues. In a good compromise, neither side is going to be perfectly happy with the decision. In a great compromise, both sides should walk away feeling a little bit uncomfortable with what they just did, but happier with the result, happier with what they just accomplished than they were before they accomplished it. That's the idea. That not everybody gets everything that they want, but everybody gets something that they want, and that something was important to them. Next, we have individual freedoms. Absolute freedom can only exist in a state of anarchy. Okay, nobody can have absolute freedom. Absolute freedom is the absolute freedom to, go out and kill somebody if they make you upset, right? That would be absolute freedom. It's not a society I want to live in, where murder is the way that problems are resolved. In the US, we protect freedoms, but we protect freedoms within a certain limitation. Our freedoms cannot lead to the harm of others. Or as Oliver Wendell Holmes once said it, he was a Supreme Court justice. He once said, "The right to swing my fist ends where the other man's nose begins." That is, that we cannot harm others through our actions of freedom. A good, clear example of this would be within the religious freedom. We all have freedom of religion. We can practice whatever religion we want here in the United States. However, our religion cannot physically harm others. That is, if our religion, such as the ancient Aztec religion, if we were to believe in the ancient Aztec faith, we would need to provide a human sacrifice to the sun every morning. Well, a human sacrifice kind of goes against the rights and freedoms of the person being sacrificed. That is not a protected right within the United States. All right, so democracy and free enterprise. How does this work? Well, our economy functions on the same basic principles as our government. It allows as much freedom as it can, but it tries to limit the harm done to others. The free enterprise system of our economy has four basic principles. Private ownership, that is, as much as possible, we want private individuals and companies to be able to own material. Individual initiative, okay, encouraging people to go out and take action. Profit, the idea that you should make money off of your work. And competition, the idea that lots of people should compete to drive down prices and increase quality for consumers. So how does the system work? Well, this free market system is often simply called capitalism. Capitalism, it's an important concept. Capitalism operates based upon the law of supply and demand. That is, suppliers want to produce a good so long as they can make money doing it, and people will demand a good so long as that price is low and reasonable. The price of goods and services is determined by this availability and by the demand for it. So it needs to be profitable to produce, but it can't be so expensive that people won't buy it. So long as that equilibrium is met and we have an equilibrium price, then our economy will function. So how does a government play into this? Well, in a free enterprise system, a capitalism, the basics of our economy, we have a system that is totally hands-off. The government doesn't do anything. But we don't live in a true capitalism. We live in a mixed economy. The United States is a mixed economy, which means the government does participate in this. It's not left entirely to businesses and consumers. And we do this for two reasons. First one is to protect the public. We want to make sure that the food that we eat isn't being laden with chemicals that might make it taste better, but will give us cancer. And number two, to preserve private enterprise. That is to make sure that our businesses can continue to function and we don't have a single company taking over an entire market and developing a monopoly, which then will drive up prices and hurt consumers. All right, so democracy and the internet. Democracy requires an informed public. We have to know material in order to participate in our society. And today, many people get their information from internet sources. This is good because the internet can quickly and effectively inform people about the issues that impact their lives. The internet is wonderful for this, how we can instantly get information on a whole broad range of topics. But here's the problems. The internet is not all that reliable. There are a lot of false sources out on the internet. Fake news has recently been a problem within the United States, where people are intentionally creating fake stories that think that they'll get your interest so that you will go to their website, maybe click on their ads and make them a few bucks. But it's all lies. Now, this is illegal. It's illegal to publish a politically motivated lie. It's illegal to do that. But the number of websites available to us makes it really difficult to enforce this law. These websites pop up quickly and they disappear quickly, and it makes it very difficult to track down what is a true story, what is a false story, who's producing these false stories. So you, as a consumer of news, need to make sure that you are careful and you only look at reliable sources. So you go to your established journalism outfits, CNN, Fox, NBC. These are all established ones, and they might have a slant to what they're producing, but they're not going to produce outright lies. All right, so those were our basic concepts of democracy. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you learned something, and farewell.